Welcome back, and apologies for technical mishaps. They happen, unfortunately, beyond our control. Having producers left, right, and center, which is a blessing, but again, apologies for the mishap in the production of Wake Up Africa this 22nd of March 2024. As I was saying earlier, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, today we are looking onto the economic significance of the RECs, Regional Economic Communities, which African Union recognizes the eight. These are the Arab Maghreb Union, Arab Maghreb Union, but we also have COMESA, which is Common Markets for Eastern and Southern Africa. Common Markets for Eastern and Southern Africa. Then we have CENSAD, which is Community of Sahel, Saharan States, CENSAD, Saharan States. Then we have the East African Community. Then we have ECAS. ECAS is Economic Community for Central African States. Then we have Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. We know that very well. Economic Community for West African States. Then we have IGAD. IGAD stands for Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Then we have the SADC, which is the Southern African Development Community. Southern African Development Community. Having worked for SAGO, I get Triangle there. But SADC is Southern African Development Community. Now, what is the economic significance of this? Why do we have all these RECs in Africa? So the RECs have been established to foster economic growth, trade liberalization, as well as regional integration. Now, I'm going to go on to one item after the other as we look onto the economic growth. How do the RECs help in building or strengthening economies of the member states? And what's more, this is what we're going to be discussing today when my team from Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania come in online to say, what more should the governments do to make sure that the citizens belonging to these RECs truly enjoy their significance, their presence. To start, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa this Saturday morning, as we facilitate regional economic integration, which I said the first thing, we're looking on to creating larger markets. What do I mean by creating larger markets? This is not straightforward. This is not given. This is the fact. We have a REC that is supposed to create larger markets. When we have larger markets, when countries come together, that means they pull their people together, they pull their resources together. That means if you only belong to a country like Tanzania that only has close to 65 million people, or 65 and above million people. Then you bring Kenya, you bring Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Somalia, Democratic Republic of Congo. Then we have Sudan and South Sudan. We're looking onto 8 member state regional bloc. Now, all these member states now come and agree that as a regional bloc, how do we create a larger market? By removing the borders and the restrictions, what we call in economics barriers to entry. So I have my product from Tanzania under EAC that can go straight into Juba, South Sudan, or Juba straight into DR Congo, DR Congo straight into Rwanda, Rwanda straight into Kenya, and they move like that. So by having RECs, we're creating a larger market. We're not only looking onto your country as a market, we're looking onto the members that form that REC as a market. I did mention shortly that by bringing countries together, we also tend to reduce trade barriers. So these countries come together and say, okay, so Tanzania and Kenya border each other. Now, if we border each other, why do we need to have trade barriers on our borders? Or even if we ship or if we air freight our products, if we come together as a REC and we agree as countries that we do not necessarily need to have trade barriers, that means products, goods, and services move freely between countries. Now, the work to reduce or eliminate trade barriers like tariffs, okay, quotas, and non-tariff barriers to promote intra-regional trade. Top three countries, four countries, five countries, 54 African countries, 53 if I remember well. For above 48, that's what I know, have ratified. No, actually 53. I think there's only one country that has not ratified into Africa Continental Free Trade Area. What does this mean? Products from Tanzania, products from Nigeria, products from any African country under African Continental Free Trade Area can easily move without what I mentioned, trade barriers such as tariffs, quotas, and other non-tariff barriers, hence promoting inter-regional trade. Excuse me for that. Then the RECs are meant to promote investments. Why and how do they promote investments? Regional integration can attract foreign and domestic investments, lead to economic growth and development. Now, when we stand as one market, that means we are now able to position or poise the countries as one, and hence attract either FDIs or local investment because of the assurance that my market now is not only my country. My market goes beyond my country borders. Hence, it reduces trade barriers, but also it promotes investments. But again, to as far as countries come together to form a REC, regional economic community, we diversify the economies. What does that mean? We diversify economies away from the reliance on a few primary commodities, and hence we promote sustainable development. So if you think of a single country in its own as an entity, but now countries have come together, that means we're not looking onto the resources of that country alone, but we're looking onto the muscles that have come together, and hence we diversify economies. During the week, we had a meeting here in Dar es Salaam where we were looking onto the Central Corridor, about 7 countries that form the Central Corridor. And now we want to transform it from just a transit corridor into Green Economic Development Corridor, GDC, whereby in the moment, the corridor caters for supporting landlocked countries. But again, we want now these landlocked countries not only to have goods transported through the corridors, but to see and develop value chains that these countries can actually now enjoy from each other. So a good could be produced in let's say Rwanda, raw materials coming from Tanzania, processed in so the countries that share the Central Corridor, Uganda, okay, the Great Lakes country, Malawi, Zambia, Burundi, and all this fantastic that all these countries were here in Tanzania, and we had that lengthy discussion, picking up the 3 value chains, picking up the vision statement of where we really want the Green Corridor to go. It was a fantastic meeting. Now, when we say we diversify economies, it's now looking onto issues like such that regional integration can help to diversify economies away from reliance on only a few primary commodities. Okay, so instead of focusing on industries in a given country, we could say, okay, so let's produce, we take this for processing on our next door neighbors, packaging comes from these other countries. So you trade amongst, you strengthen that intra-African businesses. The second factor that signifies the RECs, why are they so significant? My colleagues will be joining shortly to tell us what more can be done. Now, to as far as the RECs are concerned, I did mention those on enhancing trade and investments. Enhancing trade and investment. So how do we increase trade? How do we enhance trade? We enhance trade by reducing trade barriers. RECs facilitate increased international trade, boosting economic activities and competitiveness. Now, countries come together, they form a REC. From forming a REC, of course, they don't just say bring anything that you want to our country, the processing, or let's exchange this and that. No, 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 no. They ought to have, and I'm happy that they're giving an example of the East African community. They've already standardized the standards, what we call in Tanzania TBS, Tanzania Bureau of Standards. All the regional, the EAC member states, so the EAC Secretariat has been able now to standardize on the Bureau of Standards the quality of standards of goods that come from the countries within the East African community. So by that, we tend to not only export quality or import quality, but ensure that the quality meets the standard of the region. Standardization, this is critical. Investment opportunities, again, just to say that a unified market, a REC, can attract more investment, leading to more jobs that are created and economic growth. Now, a REC fosters or promotes or enhances jobs creation because we freely move country to the other. Of course, we still have a bit of issues when it comes to work permits. We still have to pay for this in some of the countries, but we are going there. We are heading there as the continent. And I recall a couple of programs earlier mentioning that Mwalimu Nyerere once said, Africa was once a collection of villages, and I've continuously used this phrase, and I just love this phrase, that over and above everything, Africa was once a collection of villages, which is very good. Now, we also, through enhancing trade and investment, strengthen regional supply chains. I was just talking about the Central Corridor, which is transforming from the transit corridor up onto the green economic development corridor. We also strengthen regional supply chains, and I did say that in the meeting we came up with three value chains that we want to. They're discussing about three value chains that the Central Corridor will now be promoting. We'll be going forward with those, and as I said, it was such a fantastic discussion. This is Wake Up Africa, and Wake Up Africa this morning, 22nd of March, 2025, is looking onto the regional blocks and the economic significance, and my colleagues will come and tell us what more should be done, what more has to be done in order to ensure that the people from these countries enjoy the presence of the regional economic communities. Now, the RECs also are critical in addressing regional challenges. We've seen recently where we had heads of states hosted in Tanzania, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, to discuss conflicts in DR Congo. And, it would have not been possible, or it would have been difficult, not impossible, would have been difficult if it was not called by, the East Africa community as well as the SADC. So the heads of East African community and SADC said, no, we have our brother, Congo, that we really need to discuss what is not happening there. So when you have the RECs, you also address regional challenges. I've mentioned one example of DR Congo, the conflict that are happening in DR Congo. Now, to begin with regional challenges, conflict resolutions, RECs can play a role in regional security by facilitating cooperation and coordination among member states to address conflicts and other security challenges. And we've seen troops flocking onto DR Congo to maintain peace and stability into the parts that are war-torn. So yes, the RECs can foster can address regional challenges such as fostering conflict resolutions in the member states. But also, RECs address infrastructure development. This is a great one, and again, allow me, maybe because of my presence in East Africa, but allow me to also say that we are currently, I'm aware, I cannot mention of the stages, but we are currently constructing a railway that will connect all the East African member states. A railway. What does that mean? So that means we are connecting the East African community. Okay? By connecting the East Africa community, that means people can move with another option of traveling, rail. People can trade easily, cargo can move easily, etc., etc. So REX, vis-a-vis of REX, promotes infrastructure development through regional infrastructure such as railways, roads, energy projects, which are essential for economic integration and growth. And we've seen also, the way countries produce electricity and then they trade amongst each other. This is a very beautiful thing. But again, the road networks, I can put on my engine now and drive all the way into Kenya, because the roads are very good, etc., etc. So they address regional challenges, conflicts I've mentioned, infrastructure I've just mentioned, food and energy security. Okay. Regional integration can contribute to food and energy security by promoting regional cooperation in these areas. So when you know and feel, and one of the most common commodity that we trade amongst member states in Africa, across Africa, is food. We tend to trade a lot in food products. Rice from Tanzania goes to DR Congo, goes to Kenya, Uganda. We have milk coming from Uganda into the region. We have banana, plantains from Tanzania going into Zimbabwe and Southern Africa, and many more. We have tomatoes coming from Egypt, etc., etc. Goods, avocados from Rwanda coming into the region, etc., etc. So food and energy security is also enhanced through the RECs. So I will mention a couple of examples of the RECs, which I did say earlier on that are recognized by the East African community. Associations of African states designed to facilitate regional economic integration include, so these are associations of African states that are designed to facilitate regional economic integration, include COMESA, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. COMESA, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. Then we have the EAC, the East African Community. Then we have ECOWAS, Economic Community for West African States. So that bloc also has its community. East Africa has community. We'll mention shortly about the Central Africa. We have the SADC, which is Southern African Development Community. We have IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Then we have the Arab Maghreb Union, AMU. We have the CENSAD, which is the Community of Saharan States. But we also have the ECAS, Economic Community of Central African States. Okay, these are very exemplary, and we ought to have, or we have all this because we truly want to now move from mere existence of RECs to really now think through critically what then needs to be done. What do we then bring onto the table to a normal citizen, we call Mwananchi citizen, a normal citizen, to enjoy from the RECs? What needs to be done, Excuse me. So this is the discussion today. What is your thoughts? What can we do to ensure that people in these countries that form the RECs enjoy the presence of this regional, because they're also not easy to form. They involve a lot of travel, they involve a lot of coordination amongst countries, and these are taxpayers' money, you know. Some also have fees so that the secretariat can run and operate and follow through details, etc., etc. So we are looking today onto how best can countries benefit, or the citizen of the countries benefit from the presence of the RECs, so that we are able now to do more from mere existence of the RECs to actually benefiting from them. This is Wake Up Africa coming live to you from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And momentarily, any moment now, I will be joined by my colleagues, and I want them to pour their heart onto what more can we do in order to ensure that we benefit from the RECs. So I did mention earlier that the RECs exist in Africa, and we are very delighted to have 8 of these in Africa. And other than these 8, we are also honored to see that Africans benefit from these RECs. We've seen, as I had mentioned earlier, that countries like Tanzania hosted SADC and East Africa Community towards discussing the conflicts that are happening in Congo. Now, I did say that it would have probably been difficult. It would have probably been difficult if we did not have these blocks. It's easy now to say, okay, so we are member states and we are seeing conflicts amongst ourselves. Why can't we convene and discuss what is the best way forward for us, for Africa? Again, this is not only for our leaders, for Africa. So delighted that this is one of the benefits that we see from the existence of RECs in Africa. This is what we're discussing today, and we want to really say that we are grateful. Our presidents, heads of states are making the best of the existing RECs, so that Africa can benefit from these RECs. Apart from that, my dear viewer, as I did say earlier on as well, that RECs foster economic growth. I'm looking onto the jobs that are created. I'm looking onto many other factors that are promoted from the existence of RECs in Africa. I'm looking onto the infrastructure I did mention earlier. It's easier now when you come together as a community, as a block, and say, let us put resources together. And I didn't mention this earlier on. So they come in, put the resources together. Like now we have the pipeline from Uganda through Tanzania for oil. Okay. We have the railway from Tanzania to Zambia. So countries come together, they put the resources that are necessary, needed to put up those infrastructure, and then start working towards that. This is one of the economic significance of RECs. And once whilst at that, they also create jobs, they also create employment. We're looking onto local content, buying raw materials from within the African continent. That means industries are able to supply, and once they're able to supply, that means they're able to create more jobs, they're able to pay more taxes, and through the taxes that are being collected through that, they're now supporting other sectors of the economy, etc. RECs. This is very significant, and we all can attest to that. When we come together as a REC, we bring our populations together. So looking onto the East African population, East African community population, Africa has a population of close to 1.3 billion people. So anything that moves across Africa, anything that moves across Africa, you're talking of a market of 1.34 billion people. Okay, that's a vast market. So when you're speaking about Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that means your goods and services, your products have an access to 1.3 billion people. What about EAC? Okay, so East Africa Community, bringing the 8 countries together, has a population of 331.1 million people. This was as of 2023. We have 331 million people. I remember one of my teachers, I believe in college, once told me, if you want to become a millionaire, you can sell 1 million items for 1 shilling, or you can sell 1 item at 1 million shillings. Now, East Africa Community as a bloc brings together 331.1 million people, and this is as of 2023. This is 2025. There's an increment probably of whatever percentage, but as of 2023, the regional bloc EAC had 331.1 million people. This is a big market to really look through. Now, looking onto the REX, back onto the REX, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa this morning, they ought to, one of the agreements that countries of the REX have is, being a regional economic community. We want to make sure that our citizens from our respective countries do not face quotas, trade barriers, non-tariffs, etc., tariffs and non-tariff barriers in the region, in this bloc. So they foster reduction of trade barriers, okay? Tariffs. So this is where country says any good food item, let's say maize coming from certain country, they will also have to pay certain amount of money to allow those goods into our country. Excuse me. Certain quotas that we block, you can only bring certain amounts or certain volume into this country, and other non-tariff areas. By having regional economic blocs, they now sit as heads of state, as countries, as decision makers, of course, with consultation with other private sector, business communities, and come to terms that, this tax, although we know you're earning from it, but this tax really consumes us. And they agree and they reduce and completely eliminate. And different stages that the East African communities has attained. We've gone from customs to a lot. We are really enjoying. And I do not know when we are going to get into common currency, but towards there. So when we stand in global markets, we can brag that when we speak of EAC, we speak of 331 million people. When we speak of African Continental Free Trade Area, we speak of over 1.3 billion people. This is a huge market. And by doing this, we're promoting not only our country, but we're promoting the bloc, we're promoting the region. But also, by promoting the region, by promoting the bloc, we are also enhancing, or we are also increasing trade amongst the member states. It's not pretty straightforward, but through that, we have member states that come in and through that increase trade businesses. This is Wake Up Africa. This morning we're looking onto the REX and the significance and what more can we do to ensure that, as countries, member states, enjoy the presence of the REX. This is Wake Up Africa, 22nd of March, 2025, and we are looking onto the REX, regional economic communities. We are looking onto changing Africa's narrative. We are looking onto the factors that can really bring Africa as a continent as one. Totally delighted, totally honored to host and to have this discussion early on this Saturday morning, looking onto investment opportunities that exist amongst the countries. Now, when you bring a REC, you're not looking only onto your country. You're looking onto a block, which is also very, very significant. And looking onto going further into the REX, my dear view of Wake Up Africa this morning, we're looking onto strengthening the supply chains. What does this mean? Countries have competitive and comparative advantages. Each country is unique in Africa in its own way. We can be having plenty of maize and we lack, I don't know, I'm trying to think through quickly what it is that we lack in Tanzania that we could do an exchange with, milk, for instance. So we have milk coming from Uganda, and then we have rice from Tanzania going to Uganda. Recently, when I had one of these episodes of Wake Up Africa, my friend from Rwanda, Remy, said, Austin, when you come to Rwanda, please bring me rice because the rice of Tanzania smells very good. You know, you cook rice here at the house, that from yours can actually tell that rice is someone is preparing rice this evening. So, etc. And we get animal skin from Kenya to form to as raw materials to our leather industries in Tanzania. You know, we get because their cows are Tanzania is the largest number, second largest after Ethiopia for livestock. But if you look onto our livestock and you look onto Kenya's livestock or Uganda's livestock, theirs are more, they're big. And so we bring raw materials for our leather industries from either Uganda or from Kenya. And they take rice from Tanzania. We have honey. We have Kenya takes also fruits from Tanzania, etc., etc. So when we look onto the regional blocks, we look onto strengthening regional supply chains that reduce reliance on external imports and promote local production. So I did say earlier that when we have REX, we stand as a community, we stand as a block, and by standing as a block, we bring the synergies in the country, and by bringing the synergies in the countries, we reduce importation. So we tend to have a balance of trade by reducing importation and producing internally as a block for export. So we also, by doing that, we are doing what we call a balance of trade. So what we import and what we export coming to an equal, okay? By looking onto strengthening regional supply chains. This is Wake Up Africa, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa. Good morning, Africa. It's totally an honor to host this program this morning, and delighted that we're still able to continue to host Wake Up Africa. I have my colleagues ready to join, and with them we will be looking onto a couple of other things that are happening in the region through the blocks. Now, I did mention earlier the population of EAC is 331.1 million people, with over 30% being urban across the land of 5.4 million square kilometers. Now, if we spoke only of one country, Tanzania, of only probably Rwanda or Burundi, but now as a block, we're looking and bragging over 5.4 million square kilometers. We're looking onto a GDP of $312.9 billion. Now, as a bloc, EAC, and I did mention earlier that we have 8 member states. These are alphabetically Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, and the DR Congo. Okay, they bring together a land of 5.4 million square kilometers. Think of this land as, for instance, an agricultural land, you know. And I remember having worked, I did mention this earlier, that having worked for SAGCOT, the Southern Agricultural Growth Corridor of Tanzania, by a study that was done by one of the universities from the US of A, they said this corridor alone can feed the entire African continent. So delighted that that is happening. So my dear view of Wake Up Africa, as we're looking onto the regs, we're looking onto the 8 regs that Africa has. We're looking onto African Continental Free Trade Area, and I can't help but wonder that, you know, the countries have ratified, that we move goods from one country to the other and after without these quotas, without trade barriers. And still goods are not moving, businesses are not growing. And last week we were looking onto what then needs to be done to ensure that, you know, countries benefit, to ensure that SMEs, businesses in Africa grow. And we saw from last week that over 90% of businesses in Africa are small and medium enterprises. I'm looking now if the small and medium enterprises were able to enjoy existence of the regs in the region, we would have been very, very, very far. And I have with me Allen Subi, all the way from Uganda. Allen Subi, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Africa.
Good morning, Austin. You sound like you have a cold.
Yes, but I'm happy to say also, not to brag, but to say that, you know, nothing stops Wake Up Africa from happening. How are you this morning, Allen?
I'm all right this morning. I hope you're fueling up on your dawa tea. You should be fine very soon.
Yes, it's a conflict, Allen. I must say it's a conflict between fasting and having the dawa tea. But yes, I will take a cup shortly after Wake Up Africa. So tell me, what's happening in Uganda? How is Uganda? I love that country.
Uganda is very fine. You've just reminded me that we are having a double fast happening. Clearly, I'm not taking a part in any of it, so it had skipped my mind. But we have Lent and Ramadan going on, and I've just seen a billboard this morning somewhere in the UK where the billboard has empty plates through the day, and then at sunset it changes to full plates. I think I love that creativity. Yeah, so that's what's happening here. Campaign still ongoing. This week the president has been in Hoima Mubende side. He just got back, I think, yesterday. And Austin, I'm going to tell you more when we are closing, because now
Right,
I'm getting
absolutely.
off
So
the
we're
topic.
looking onto the regs, Allen, my dear, from Uganda. We're looking onto the regs, regional economic communities, and I'm wondering, last week we spoke about small and medium enterprises that form over 90% of businesses in Africa, but they're not growing. And we looked onto the factors that cause why these SMEs in Africa are not growing, why the micros, micro, small, medium. And I was wondering during the week, as I was doing the research onto what we were discussing today, that we have the RECs, the regional economic communities. You and me belong to East African community. But what more needs to be done so that businesses and the citizens from these regional economic communities can benefit, can enjoy the presence of the RECs?
Yeah, Austin, this week I've been reminded of a story. It's an old tale, really, but there's an assignment I had this week that had me reading it and remembering that we read it way back in primary school. It's called The Stone Soup. A story is told of travelers who enter a certain village amidst a thick and long famine. So, because of the famine that was ongoing, people were hoarding food. So every household had some food saved up, and they were not willing to take in any guests, really, because it was just enough for the family, and they didn't even know how long it was going to take them. So the travelers enter this village very hungry, and they try to find food. They try to ask around residents for food, but then they are turned away. There's no food to spare. So what the travelers then do is trick the villagers into sharing their food by claiming that they have they make the most delicious soup in the world, and it's made out of stone and water. So they are given a pot, they place a big stone and water, and then they tell the villagers, this is going to be the tastiest soup you've ever tasted. What you have to do to contribute is to bring any small amount of ingredient that you have stored up in your home, so you can contribute to this delicious soup. So then let's say, Austin, you bring the Royco. I bring the curry powder. Someone brings some corn, so they gathered ingredients and everyone would come and pour into this pot. And at the end of the day, true to the traveler's word, they had the most delicious soup. And how did they achieve that? By getting ingredients from everyone in the community. The community did not realize that the travelers had used their own ingredients to make the soup they said was the most delicious. So this story, I'm reminded of it because of the conversation we're having this morning on the role of the regional economic blocks. And true to what we're saying is the fact that alone, as Uganda, we've been discussing challenges we are facing on the economy when we draw up on our boundaries. Uganda as an economy has so many challenges. We've been discussing them. Tanzania has different challenges. Some are even shared, but dealing with these challenges on our own can become a nightmare. Yeah, it's an uphill task, and yet coming together. And I'm glad that these countries came to this realization many years ago, and then they decided to form these blocks. And a lot of work has been put in the blocks. We have, the African Union Agenda 2063, which has led to the establishment of this always gives me a hard time. The African, continental free trade area, and we know the benefits that come with membership. Then the East African Community and whatnot, COMESA and all these. So then the dialogue this morning is about what more can be done, because much as these blocks have been in existence for some years, and dialogue is happening, we see the work that's ongoing, then what more can we do to increase their capacity and also increase the impact, so that the impact is felt by real people, by the citizens of member states. So yeah, this is a good conversation to have this morning. I'm glad I could be a part of it. Austin, I forget the question you're asking me.
So what more? And I really must tell you, I've loved the story, and I'm certainly going to use it and pass the message on. It's very rich. So what more can the blocks, if the secretariat or the presidents or the authorities do to make sure that you and me, Alan, you and me enjoy the blocks or the presence of our countries in the blocks?
Okay, first and foremost, Austin, I think the the countries, individual countries, need to take a keen interest in these blocks and in what we can achieve as a group. I know that the East African Development Bank has 4 member countries, and it is my hope, probably theirs as well, that all East African states come on board, because if you're looking at what we are able to achieve for the businesses and financial institutions in the region, for Kenya, for Tanzania, for Rwanda, and for Uganda. How about if we got membership from other countries? I'm talking Congo, I'm talking Burundi, South Sudan, and the like. If they could come on board as well, we are increasing what we have in the bank. We're increasing the money that we are putting together, and then we're also increasing the impact we can be able to achieve with putting more funds to work. So first and foremost, what can be done is, putting in the work and effort towards increasing membership, not just for EADB, I just use that as an example, but for all regional blocks. I think work needs to be put into increasing membership, so that we increase the size of our financial basket. The other thing I've been thinking about, I do run a movers business, and I've expanded from Uganda, from in-country moves to East Africa, and I've found that when people are relocating from Uganda to Kenya, the process is kind of seamless. Relocating people from Uganda to Tanzania, also that's seamless. Of course, I've mastered the requirements and all, but and I know that you do have someone on the call from Rwanda. I hope he can speak into this later. Moving household items from Uganda to Rwanda gives me a headache. Every time I have a job to do, going into Rwanda, I, I have sleepless nights because the requirements keep increasing. If you've mastered one this time, the next move, things are going to be different. We always get some sort of hurdle at the border. And my point this morning is that if we could really embrace, the free trade movement, because at least for my business, I'm not moving goods, I'm moving household items. The expatriates moving, there are people relocating back home, but then there are so many fees, there's so many hindrances to this move, that I'm wondering why it's that way with Rwanda. If we could totally embrace free trade and we open up, our borders to citizens to do business at a scale where they're not being pressed down by taxes and all other restrictions we're putting in place. I think that's something that would improve the lives of our citizens, you know. I've also been looking at the health sector. The health sector, for us to be, I know that many politicians and businessmen in Uganda seek medical care at the Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi. And it's only them that can afford the medical bills there, because they're hefty. So how about if we brought down the medical bills so that more people, we drive numbers, more people can be able to move from Rwanda, from Uganda, to seek treatment in Kenya, because the bills are not hefty, you know. And so would we do in Uganda, bringing down the bills and finding a way to accommodate more patients, because the doctors are in place, the equipment is in place. So what do we have to gain if we are drawing very hefty bills, and yet at the end of the day we are only able to treat 10, 20 patients a month, as opposed to getting people the right treatment, curing our diseases, because now we have the capacity to, and we reduce on the bills they have to. And with health also comes in the education. You know that right now Uganda hosts many people from the region, many students from the region in our universities, but their fees separate from Ugandans and foreigners. And members from East African countries are charged under foreigners. So you'll find that where for a course where a Ugandan citizen is charged, let's say 2 million shillings, a foreigner will be paying 4 million, double the cost. Can you imagine, Austin? So
Yeah.
if we could also find a way to work through these restrictions and offer equal opportunities to member countries of these blocks, I think we'll be finding a way for the impact to be felt in these countries, in all these countries, and for citizens of these countries to feel the impact of these blocks. I'll stop right there for now, Austin.
Just be as still clinging to what you just said. I want to understand. So if I come to Uganda, or if you go to Rwanda, or if you come to Tanzania, on medical, for instance, on medical attention, you would be charged as a foreigner and not as a local, not as what I would pay, right? Or not as what you would pay if I were to come to Uganda.
No, that applies for education. Education for universities, but for health, and I gave an example of the Aga Khan Hospital.
Yes.
The bills are high. So because they're high, then only a few citizens can afford to get medical attention that side. Others would rather stay here and use the public services offered in Uganda. So we found that only politicians, ministers, prominent businessmen are able to fly out of the country to come to Nairobi for medical treatment. The rest of the citizens will stay here and have to wait on the healthcare of Uganda. So my appeal is that if the medical care bills can be brought down for you and I to be able to afford to fly out and get seek medical attention in Nairobi, then it would make more sense. The impact would be felt.
Absolutely, I hear you, Alan. And I am sure the authorities, and I will pass this information where I will be able to pass this information. I'm delighted that I have different platforms many times, and I will certainly pass this information. Education is similar, health could be, but again, visa, there are countries that in Africa still we in order for us to visit those countries, we have to pay visa.
Need a visa.
I'm happy that this is not happening in Uganda and Tanzania.
So more, I know, right? So more and more countries need to come on board with this free movement of citizens.
We had last couple of weeks when the president of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Ruto, said, we are removing visa fee for all African countries, I think with an exception of one or two. I think it's quite exemplary.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is now truly embracing what we are promoting through Wake Up Africa, the oneness of the continent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I happened to meet your permanent secretary this week in the Ministry of Transportation, where we're discussing onto the Central Corridor, Uganda being one of the member states in the Central Corridor, and we developed the 3 value chains where we're going to all enjoy as members of Central Corridor from, just the transit corridor to green economic development corridor, looking onto the value chains, regional value chains. So this is again towards embracing the oneness of Africa. This is towards embracing what we're discussing today, this economic significance of the regional blocks that countries need to enjoy and embrace because they create jobs, Alan. They create opportunities for the countries. They create markets for the member states.
Yeah, true. And yeah, now that would be in terms of infrastructure, and I'm sure it would also bring the transport costs lower for both passengers and goods. Excellent.
But tell me one thing, as you're saying that infrastructure and transport costs, I was wondering now, sometimes where was this? This was in Addis. I was in Addis the other day, Alan, and I met a person at the airport who was flying all the way to Dubai to come to Tanzania, and not a direct flight maybe from Tanzania. So it's expensive sometimes to fly direct from Tanzania to Uganda, which should take us about an hour. But rather people would opt to go to Rwanda, then Uganda, or to Addis through Ethiopian Airlines, and then to Uganda. What's your take on that as far as the wrecks are concerned?
Oh yeah, and thank you for bringing that up because it's been a headache, and I think it's something that needs to be discussed. I get where the airlines are coming from with this. It could be that there's less traffic, but they also need to be listening in on public calls, public uproars, because this has been ongoing for some time. Why have to, to spend a whole day on a trip that could have taken me just a few hours, just less than 2 hours, and these are businessmen traveling. These are leaders in the different spheres. So why waste all this time? So, and I think that some of them would not even mind paying an extra fee just to get home or to get to their destinations on time. So imagine having to first go to Dubai. Can you imagine? So I think this is something that we need to look into. This week, Austin, going back to what's happening in Uganda, Uganda Airlines has launched direct flights to the United Kingdom. So
Okay.
right now, yeah, thank you. So right now, I can fly from here to the UK on a direct flight. So the debate has been on how many Ugandans, or how many people are leaving Uganda to the UK, and what informed the choice of destination for that deal. But for me, what it shows me is that the UK government has been open and willing to receive us. The conversation has happened, and we've done the same for China. We've done the same for Lagos, Nigeria. So where we are being received, where the conversation has been smooth, then that has opened up. So how much more could we achieve if African states were willing and open to having these conversations, so that we have more direct flights. We are opening up a business. We are opening up education and health. We're opening up sectors for Africans to move freely and easily. So I think much as Ugandans like to debate and contest everything, they're asking, UK, how many of us are flying to the UK, that we didn't need this. But it just shows that the diplomatic lines were open, and good conversation was had, and the UK is ready to receive us. So maybe now that the hope is that they're going to have less restrictions on their visas, because they know that we have direct flights there. So, which is a good thing. It's a step in the right directions. So let more African countries be open to this sort of arrangement.
And would you by any chance happen to know how many countries you fly directly to in Africa? Any chance? You're not in that industry, but probably it popped in one of the speeches.
What I can speak on authoritatively is, yeah, the UK now, then Nigeria, then China, and China was a very strategic move because so many traders are going to China every day. Um, no, that's what I can speak on authoritatively. Of course, besides the East African countries.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan, for great insights. I believe the authority will, in a way, have this document land on their tables and take action because, we are dedicating, we are sacrificing our beautiful Saturday morning sleep to rewriting Africa's narrative. A lot is happening in Africa. I'm looking into the public relations. Alan, you and me belong to that field, the public relations, the Africa's PR. And have you ever wondered what is happening? What is not happening in the Africa's PR?
Africa's PR. Um, I know that I have also served as Secretary General for 4 years, and I will be handing over early next month. We are changing governing councils as the Public Relations Association of Uganda. But I know that in my 4 years in office, we have received many invitations for collaboration from different African associations of public relations. We've reviewed them, and some we've aligned. Others, it's still work in progress. I know that we have hosted. Uganda has hosted the East African PR fraternity the other year, and last year. Last year it was actually Arusha that hosted. So still on the front of togetherness, I think as PR professionals we're doing what we can to get together, and these spaces provide for opportunities of learning. And I know that every time I interface with PR practitioners in Africa, there's a lesson or two to pick and to offer, not just the workspace, but also the industry back home. So I'm glad that at least we are leading. We are leading on this. We are fully aligned as PR professionals working together. Yeah, so I hope that we use all the platforms exposed to us to still preach the gospel of togetherness as Africans.
Thank you so much, Alan. Now tell us on as we come towards the end of the discussion between Wake Up Africa and Uganda. You had started earlier on to tell us what is happening in Uganda. You said you'll probably be speaking later on about this, and your parting remark this morning as we look onto the RECs, regional economic communities. What is happening in Uganda? And I'm happy and delighted. If it's something any time from Wednesday next week, I'm looking on to doing a quick visit to Uganda. I'll tell you more about this offline. But what's happening in Uganda this coming week or this past week? What has happened?
So some of the highlights in the news I have spoken about. Uganda Airlines opening direct flights to the UK. The campaign trail, where it's been this week. Lent and Ramadan happening. On a sad note, there's a popular hangout spot that's been closed. I personally hope it doesn't open anytime soon, because a young girl was drugged and we lost her to such malicious acts. Yeah. Her drink was drugged and she passed away. So that's been thick on social media this weekend. I think Barrio is today. Very sad story. A girl that just graduated from Makerere University in January. so this spot has been popular. People go hang out, have a good time till morning, and such things have been happening. But there's been no fatal case. But this time around, the unfortunate news, broke. I think Thursday. So it's been closed. So yeah, that's what's happening here in Uganda. Um, um, I can't really project to next week. I know that campaigns are happening. I don't know where the president will be next week. But the rains are here. I know we had a dry spell for some months, but the rains are here now. So the weather is beautiful. If you happen to come this week, you'll enjoy it. And we can't wait to host you. We will discuss this offline. But yeah, thank you so much for having me this morning, Austin. Enjoy your weekend.
You can see that big smile on my face. I'm excited that, yay! But really, sorry, so sorry for the loss, and we pray that this the thing is put to rest, and the young lady so rest in peace.
Yeah.
And what would your passing remark be, Alan? What would you want Africa to take for the next week as we're discussing the rates?
So you mentioned that you're in some spaces where you get to discuss these things and you're talking to maybe policymakers and other influential members of the society. So my parting remark would be to you, so that you bring it up along with the other submissions I've made this morning. Scholarships. I think that's something else that can be beneficial to the citizens of member countries in the blocks. I know that there are some scholarships already in place. If we can increase them and spread them out to the underprivileged, to the working class, for an opportunity because I spoke about the hefty fees for foreigners and students from the region being referred to as foreigners. So imagine if they came on scholarship. I think that would also be a good thing for us to increase the number of scholarships, to increase on the different schemes that are providing scholarships to members, to member states. I think that would be a good thing, and I'll add that to my earlier submissions. Austin, discuss that in your areas of influence.
Absolutely. But Alan, thank you so much once again. I want you, Alan, to mark on your calendar. I'm sending an invitation to you to visit Tanzania end of June, beginning of July. I will tell you what is happening then, but I would really be blessed and humbled to have your presence then.
Yay!
If you're planning on a holiday, I would really want to request you to plan around, end of June, beginning July to visit Tanzania. We'll discuss when I visit Rwanda, hopefully next week.
Great. Let's talk about this more.
Thank you so much, Alan. You are always the star that brings a lot of light into Wake Up Africa, and I would really want to thank you and wish you heaven's best this weekend and the week to come. I will talk to you next week, but we'll touch base after the end of Wake Up Africa.
All right. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you so much. That was Alan Subi coming from Uganda. And we are delighted that, she poured her heart. I love the way she started by telling us the story of the soup. Alan, we are fasting and you're telling us about soup in the morning, but it's a beautiful story. I mean, the wisdom that comes along with that story is just mesmerizing and totally honored. I have with me Elliot on the line from Burundi. Elliot, good morning. Elliot, I'm just saying you're from Burundi, but you could be anywhere in this world. How are you this morning? Elliot, are you there?
Good morning, Wake Up Africa. Good morning, Austin. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm here.
Totally
Can you
honored,
hear me?
totally honored to have you with us this morning, Elliot. How have you been?
Oh, I'm well. Last week I was in Uganda. I was glad to hear our colleague Alan saying about Uganda, and I had a great time there.
Excellent.
And I appreciate her insightful discussions. Let me first start by a word. Work alone, you go fast. Work together, you go so far.
Fantastic.
So that is my first contribution for this morning. And hearing your discussion, I think it's meant a lot.
Fantastic.
So
So where are you today, Elliot? You know, I'm attempting to catch up to your mileage, which I'm sure I
yeah,
cannot catch any moment now. But where are you joining us from this morning?
from this morning, I currently back. I'm home. I'm Burundi.
Oh, fantastic. So we are looking onto, Elliot, we're looking onto the regional economic communities, the RECs. And Africa Union has 8 RECs that recognizes, and these 8 do not include the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where 53 countries have ratified. What ought to be done so that you, Ellen, myself, and all other people that are behind and beside us can really make the most of the RECs that Africa has or should take?
Yes. First of all, we have a lot to share, and I think now we have more community, as you mentioned, the AFCFTA, the EAC, SADC, COMESA, and I think what we need now, we have to strengthen what we have by changing, by doing reforms in our laws, because we know that each country has the potential. The economic is not at the same level, but if we work together, we can go so far. So I think many things has been done yet. If, for example, I can mention about the EAC, if we look at the Common Market Protocol, you can see different sectors has been liberalized in order to work together, in order to allow countries business to cross border. So last week I was in Uganda under the umbrella of the EABC, East Africa Business Council. We were looking at to validate regulatory framework on trade services, because we see that today the trade services is going up and is contributing at a high level in GDP in East Africa. So I was very happy to be among this discussion, because as you say, as you hear, currently something are working on it in East Africa, but also AFCFTA. We can see that also even our countries, our partner states, has liberalized some sectors in order to sustainable development, sustainable cross-border, to allow businessmen to export their goods from each partner states. Yeah, thank you.
And allow me, Elliot, thank you so much for your contribution. But allow me to ask you this question: that you've been traveling quite a lot recently, and would you say your travels, especially within African continent, have been seamless, or that you've encountered some technical challenges which probably the RECs need to address, or you've had a smooth travel all across?
Thank you, Austin. Oh, it was not easy because traveling, imagine from Burundi directly to Entebbe, it's 45 minutes, but I used to pass by Addis Ababa, Bujumbura, Addis Ababa, 2 hours, and go back to and go forward to Kampala. So it took 4 hours. It was not easy, but yeah, we made it. We made it because it was a mission, it was a purpose in order to be able to contribute to as a partner state. So because that meeting engaged 8 partner states, and all of them was at the appointment. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Austin.
So what's your take? What needs to be done, Elliot?
Oh, as my colleague Ellen said, our countries have to setting up a strong discussion, because we know that some has airlines companies, and also we have many goods services to share. So I think we have to put on the table that issue, because it's a challenge that for people are faced every single daily. So I think it's one of the question can be solved as we are moving to emphasize to develop straighten business cross-border, and it will also allow people or businessmen to increase their profits, and also even all each partner that we gain in terms of the GDP. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And I'm thinking out loud now. You know, these are the 8 blocks that I mentioned earlier that are known by the African Union. There are also other blocks that exist within our networks. You, as a lawyer, I believe you belong to probably African Lawyers Association, if something like that ever exists, and they're of great economic significance. Do you want to give an example of if you belong to any of such?
Yeah, I'm a member of East Africa Law Society and also the Burundi Bar Association as a local bar association, but also in East Africa we have East Africa Law Society, which is very, very engaged in order to develop our laws and help contribute in our countries as a lawyer, and also at the regional level, but also in the international level.
Okay. And how do members of East African Law Society benefit from being, in such organizations, so that, the RECs could also, I know we're emanating from the RECs, but I'm looking onto an individual benefit to for you, probably being a member of the East African Law Society. Alan and I belong to the African Public Relations Association. It's called APRA, and we are coming big this June. But as a member of APRA, I'm exposed to regional trainings on public relations, networking sessions, etc., etc. Now, the East African Law Society, does it give such opportunities to members? What lessons should we draw to as far as the RECs are concerned in terms of, passing information so that individual member states and the citizens from those states could benefit being members of the RECs?
Thank you. First of all, each year in November, we have an annual conference, General Assembly conference, which took 5 days. It means we have 2-3 days for exchanging experience, trainings, and also the last day it's a General Assembly, where we see how our institution has made advantages to the affiliates. So first of all, it's networking, because as each partner state are representing at that appointment, we do networking. And since my past annual I attending, I can say that I gain a lot, because now I have friends, I have colleagues from Kenya, from South Sudan, from Uganda, from Tanzania, from Rwanda, from DRC, which is very important, because when we have to work from my country or my colleague from Kenya, we exchange we do together the work. And secondly, it has permitted me to also to travel to discover our country. When we are talking about integration, we can integrate without visiting the country. In 2022, I was in Arusha. It was my first time. I saw that the weather from Arusha was the same as to Burundi. So another thing, during those conference, we have also our hosts from abroad. Last year, it was in Uganda, Munyonyo. At Munyonyo Resort, we have the IBA, International Bar Association, was our guest, and also it was a time to exchange our experience and also to see how we can strengthen our strategic partnership in order to emphasize or to develop our work. So there are a lot. Let me say a few, but also we still have more to develop in order to be effective in our work, because the economy is growing, and also we have to follow some some tools. Today we are talking a lot about digitalization, artificial intelligence. So we see that also in our work, we have to put in place those tools in order to be effective to give good quality work to our clients. Thank you. Over to you.
Excellent, Elliot. There's a lot, and I always tell people, given the opportunity to speak, that you've got to learn and you've got to network. Learning and networking, the skills that are necessary to navigate and transverse through life today, and you've said them very well. Alan, as Elliot, as we are almost coming to an end of Wake Up Africa, before I tell we hear of your parting remarks to Africa on this 22nd March episode, what is happening in Burundi? Tell us what's happening in Burundi, what has been happening for the past week or two. We've missed you last week as well, and what is forthcoming in Burundi. I spoke of my meeting this week with the Central Corridor that is transforming from a transit corridor, saving landlocked countries, into a green economic development corridor, GEDC. And we're looking onto regional value chains, great strides on the way. But what is happening in Burundi?
Oh, thank you. I think as also we are part of that corridor, and also there are many dynamics in terms of energy transition. At the national level, I think what I can say, each institution are try to setting up a good strategy at this time. As I told you last time, early in the last year, December, we had a round table where we have invited more stakeholders and also investors. So now we are trying to setting up some projects in order to attract, in order to allow investors to come to invest in our key sectors like the health, energy, also in agriculture, agribusiness, and I think, as I said, at the national level, we are doing what is necessary according to the discussion we have during the last week. But also, some ministries like trade are doing some workshop, some meetings held with the stakeholders at the national level in order to see how the beneficiaries as entrepreneurs can also gain the advantages. I can sell some institution like UNDP, some as a Netherlands embassy has organized some workshops in order to boost the champions who are the ground to know what is necessary in order to increase their products in order for export. So I can mention few in this time and let you know after if there is some appointment to share. Thank you. Over to you.
Fantastic, Elliot. I cannot yet again, resist asking you, when is your next trip and to where?
At this time, no, I don't have a plan, but as you know, we are here to serve, we are here to contribute. So anytime it can be a call, but at the early in May, I'm supposed to be in Europe in order to meet investors, in order to meet private sector and other institutions for a strategic partnership, as I said, for private sector, for as I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we are keen to build more partnership in order to develop for sustainable development. Yeah.
Fantastic. But you also remember that I'm coming down in May, I believe.
Yes. You said at the middle.
As soon as you're back, you let me know and I'll be on the next flight in. Yes.
When we fix the date, I will let you know, then we organize, because you are most welcome to come to Burundi. It's a long invitation, and we are.
I tell you, it's long overdue.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And what would your parting remarks be for Africa this morning?
Oh, thank you. Let's share what we have, strengthen what we have as tools, as laws, and make it more profitable for the population. And at the end, as I said, work alone, go fast, work together, to go far. Thank you. Over to you.
Fantastic. As I did say to Alan, allow me now to also extend a personal invitation to you. If you're planning a quick break, then if I may request you to plan some break between end June, beginning July, I will have a personal agenda, and I would really wish if you could make it to Tanzania. I will give you the details sometimes later.
Thank you. Most welcome. Thank you.
But before you come to Tanzania, I know it won't be the first time. It will be my first time in Burundi in May. We'll have a lot of more exchange, but again, Wake Up Africa to rewrite Africa's narrative. So for me, really, Elliot, is to thank you as we come towards the end, and thank you so much for your time and your contribution to making the REX work for Africa.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Pass my regards to the family and talk to you next week.
Thank you. Good day.
Thank you so much. This was Elliot Ndejimana, all the way from Burundi, sharing great insights on how the RECs, regional economic communities, should work, bringing similar challenges that Alan also from Uganda mentioned. I ought also to mention, that we have these blocks, and for them really to work, they really have to go down to the grassroots, to the people. What are our needs? Alan has, amongst many other multiple things that this young lady does, she has a movers company. If you want to move from one country, from one block, from one village, from one town, from one city, she has that logistics company. And she spoke about encountering challenges when moving a client from Uganda to Rwanda. Then Elliot spoke of, he was going to a 45 minutes flight distance, having to take 2 hours to Addis, spend a couple of minutes at the airport and fly back to Uganda. And then he did not mention that he also probably spent 2 3 hours at the airport. So a 45 minutes trip taking 6 hours plus, it's really really ridiculous. And we really need to look through, as we are uniting, as we are standing with our oneness as Africa. We really ought to think that the RECs really need to address these challenges. As I come to the end, regional blocks or regional integration agreements are significant. I repeat, these are very significant because they facilitate increased trade, investment, and economic cooperation among participating countries. So it's not only increased trade, but investment and economic cooperation amongst participating countries, leading to broader markets, efficiency gains, and potential economic growth. Together, we are strong. Together, we stand strong. The more united, the stronger we are. I recall Gaddafi, God rest his soul in peace, up until his final days on earth, spoke about united Africa, and it's mesmerizing. It's a beautiful concept. Rwanda promotes Ubuntu. I've missed Remy today. He sent an apology. Rwanda promotes Ubuntu. Last week, I spoke about BUTU, Buy Uganda, Trade Uganda, Support Uganda, Promote Uganda. But again, another very fantastic concept that Africa needs to be grounded to as the continent. What is it that we want to leave behind? One of my statuses I shared this week was, life is the gift that God has given to us, and how we live is how we give back to God. The gift now we give back to God is shown on the way we live. And I'm contemplating that those in authorities, those who have the voice to really speak of regional blocks, not their mere existence, but really people that belong to these blocks, the people, the grassroots, really have to enjoy, from visas to movements of goods and products from one country to the other, and many more. Looking on to increased trade and investment, broader markets, economies of scale. Large markets can support large scale producing, leading to lower costs and increased competitiveness. We ought to think on how best we can, increase intra-African trade. And as the continent, trading with other continents, have a balance of trade by ensuring that we support each other. But again, access to cheaper inputs. If you do not have those goods in your country that act as raw materials, and you can access them from another country, the mere fact that you're in the same block, that means you have access to cheaper inputs. But I did speak a lot about regional value chains, RVCs. The blocks now foster the development of regional value chains where different countries specialize in different stages of production, leading to greater integration into global value chains. As a whole, now looking onto a world as a village, improved living standards. I did mention about the Bureau of Standards from the EAC that have come together and said this is how we are going to leverage our standards in the region, cascading all the way to the way we live by creating high value jobs, increasing trade. Regional integration can lead to, excuse me, improved living standards for people in the countries involved. But again, political and social benefits. I spoke about how EAC and SADC convened to look onto the issues of DR Congo, the peace and security, cultural exchange, how last week, but one I spoke about the way I enjoyed and related to dancers in Ethiopia. Now cultural exchange where we have understanding amongst people from different countries, the way we dress the same, we eat the same foods, probably names are different, but stiff porridge is mostly consumed across Africa. Different names again, but we also eat rice all across Africa, cassava, etc. So these are all culture, the music, etc., tends to move and unite people. We have sporting AFCON that will be hosted in East Africa in 2027. All these cultural exchange, but harmonization of policies, regional blocs foster harmonization of policies through looking onto trade environment, social policies, leading to greater efficiency and effectiveness. I keep asking myself, why do we have all these barriers for who? But again, strengthen institutions, not only looking onto the secretariat, but we're looking onto regional institutions and organizations which can play an important role in promoting cooperation and development, looking onto all the jobs that are created. Discussing a common agenda as a continent is a beautiful thing. I recall the meeting we had in Addis at the AU side meeting, looking onto the Addis Declaration on Immunization, looking onto one agenda, immunization for African children. It was just a beautiful thing. And then we have the people-centered integration. This is part of what also Wake Up Africa is promoting. Integration must be people-centered with stronger citizens, partnerships, especially among Africans, uh, our genuine youth population, the growing youth population, the private sector players, the civil society institutions in order to ensure sustainable development. This is where we join hands with the UN when we use the tag leaving no one behind. So regional integration brings a lot of benefits. There are challenges here and there, but looking onto the benefit. But again, they should not be left up in the skies. They should be encouraged all the way to the grassroots level. People need to know. I recall one of the meetings I attended at the EAC where we resolved that people do not enjoy the benefits that are associated with the East African community because of lack of knowledge. People do not have a clue on to what are some of the benefits from becoming or from being a citizen in the EAC bloc. So we ought to cascade the information down to the grassroots so that people continue to enjoy massively the presence of the Rex in the region. So once again, I would like to really thank you, Elliot. I would like to really thank you, Alan Sube. I would like to thank you, Aminata. You could not join us today as well. And I believe you will in the next episode and be able to really drive this show because I'll probably be up and about everywhere. Special thanks yet again to Noreen. Special thanks to my team on the ground. Again, wonderful people that I have from the countries. Patricia and Dede from Kenya. Um, my brother from Nigeria, Mr. Talks. I miss you, bro. Let's talk soon. But again, truly very special thanks to all my viewers of Wake Up Africa this morning, to all the contributors, to all who chip in and say Austin Wake Up Africa needs to look onto certain topics. My mother, thank you so much from my heart. For all the support and all the love you bring on to Wake Up Africa. I have a very dear friend, Jolene. Thank you so much for the support. And, we all want to rewrite Africa's narrative, and through collaboration, through working together, through coming together, we will all be able now to bring Africa as one as we rewrite the narratives. Yes, as we rewrite the narratives, we will be bringing Africa as one. Up until next week, I'm your host, Austin Makani, coming to you live from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, East Africa. All that I can say is one love, one heart. Let's get together and everything will be all right. Quoting Bob Marley, Bob Nesta Marley. Thank you. This is Wake Up Africa. Up until then, thank you so much for watching and stay well, stay put. Have a great week ahead.